Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland, and you know what to do, folks. Like this stream if you're watching it live. It pushes us to the top of the algorithm. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications, and you better say hello to my Knicks brethren, whatever you are, my buddy.
Go New York, go New York, go!
Rocking the Knicks hat, and I've got the Rangers jersey on. We are the New York ESVN crew. I mean, we're going to talk about every single series, but forgive us if we have a little bit more excitement when we talk about what happened with the Knicks last night. Oh my God.
I was at a Passover Seder last night at my good
That's
friend's.
why we're doing the show today. Thank you for your understanding, folks.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I was at my good friend's house for Passover, and it was literally extremely reminiscent of the scene in Uncut Gems where they were watching the NBA playoffs at a Passover Seder in April. And we were watching the Knicks, and I was with my friend's family, and we literally all were like, all right, they're down 6, like, we can go home. And then Brunson hit that clanger off the backboard, and then the insane scrum that ensued after led to, off the rim led to, and then the DiVincenzo scrum, the missed shot, then the made shot. It was just like,
yes,
it was insane. It was just an absolute like blackout experience. Like,
I mean, the Knicks are, we'll just get right into the NBA playoffs here. We'll also say we'll do NBA playoff recaps, talk about that, then the NHL, and then we're going to do my mock draft before somebody heads to the Ranger game as their birthday present today. If you want to know why I'm wearing this jersey, it's not my normal attire here. So, I mean, the Knicks game, the Knicks series between the Sixers has been, I think, the best of the playoffs, not for outcome in terms of, like, Sixers fans, I understand, probably not loving it, but in the way that the game has been competitive, the drama of it all. Joel Embiid is not 100%. He was certainly not 100% in game 1 when Mitchell Robinson just completely locked him down in the second half, and that was a thing of beauty. Love Mitch, but Embiid was feeling a bit better this game. You can't stop him from scoring. And Tyrese Maxey, look, I underestimated him going into the season. I think a lot of people did. He's in the running for most improved player for good reason. I mean, I did not realize he had that gear to be as fast as he can. When he sees a lane and he drives to the hoop like that, he's a star in the making, if not a star already. So the future is bright in Philadelphia. The problem is just that Embiid clearly is managing a lot of pain when it comes to that knee and that meniscus, and also a lot of pain in losing the series, because after the game was over, he couldn't even lift his head up. He just kept looking at the ground, talking about how they're going to win the series, and that's tough because going up 2-0 is a significant advantage. They really needed to steal one at the Garden.
It's also, I think, just very clear that he is, as you're saying, Emma, that he's just dealing with the vestiges of the injury that he's been experiencing throughout, the majority of the season, and that has, I think, led to both an issue with him regarding his conditioning, but also it's
just his body
and
too.
His body, right? And I don't mean conditioning in like a derisive way. I just mean genuinely like the wear and tear already to be recovering from the injury, and then to basically go straight into both the back half, the tail end of the regular season, kind of needing every game to be sort of must win to get where they were, and then to get right into a playoff series with a pretty intense and tenacious Knicks team. It's not really kind of like the soft landing to come back from a long-term injury.
Yeah.
And the way that Embiid plays lends itself to some wear and tear in the sense that he's an enormous person, and with how willing he is to drive into the basket and draw contact, he's also enduring a lot of contact and falling.
Well, he made a dumb play in game 1 where he bounced it off the backboard.
Right. And
he's getting
right.
The thing I noticed is Embiid's getting pissed. And that's probably not
Definitely.
great. Like he's been rocked a little bit by the Garden crowd, and I don't say that, with, well, I say that gloating slightly because for a Philly sports player, I actually really like Embiid and root for him in some, weird way, in part because the Sixers really just have, they're cursed in some ways. But Yeah, the high-end talent on the Sixers is better than the Knicks, but the Knicks are the better team right now. They play better team basketball, and it's evidenced by the fact that they were able to overcome two actually just like awful games by Jalen Brunson.
Well, like,
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I would almost say, like, I would almost submit to you, like, potentially two of the worst games of his Knicks tenure,
career.
or maybe career period. He
Yeah.
has just not been able to find the bottom of the hoop, and it just seems like, which is so rare for him because he is such a considered and measured player. Despite how much he can, like, despite how, like, he's basically a blur of motion with his types of moves and stuff like that. He just looks like he's forcing a lot of things, and nothing is falling.
Yeah, I mean, and his shot hopefully will start to fall, but the point is that Dante DiVincenzo, another player in the running for most improved player in the league, is just hitting threes. Well, he wasn't in game one, but hitting threes. The tandem of Mitchell Robinson and the versatility that the Knicks have at the center position, where they need that like kind of more athletic offensive upside, they can put Isaiah Hartenstein in versus Mitchell Robinson when he comes in and can be physical and block shots and can match up a little bit more with Embiid size wise. I mean, I think the Knicks ceiling is the Eastern Conference Finals, but they are playing hard and they have this kind of magical quality to them that made that win in the Garden yesterday, one which my sister was in freaking at the game for. I mean, they bought last minute nosebleeds on a whim. I'm so jealous. Anyway,
that would have been absolutely
she
insane
said it was totally
to
insane.
see in person.
Yeah,
like the way I was feeling in like a person's home, I was like going crazy.
And her boyfriend's not American, so he's not didn't grow up with basketball, so he's starting to get into the Knicks.
Yeah, he's like, oh my god,
him
this
getting
is
to
chaos.
see that. I know. I'm just so happy for both of them. So anyway, yeah, like it was an incredible game. I think that Brunson is going to need to step up if the Knicks actually want to close this out. And, you're seeing this a little bit in hockey, too. A lot of the teams that go on deeper runs, they have one series that they close out kind of quickly. So they don't have to just kind of wear and tear their bodies down the stretch because of, them having to play consistently and they can get some time off. But yeah, I mean, I just think the Knicks are playing better basketball right now and the Sixers seem shook. And also Nick Nurse is such a little...
He's so annoying.
Like pest.
He's like a cop. Like he's so, and he just is constantly grimacing and complaining. I mean, listen.
And his drip is not cool. Like he thinks he looks sick with his chain and his freaking gold watch. It's like, I don't know if you're giving out what you think that you're giving here, buddy.
The thing is, I can understand as someone who's lost.
Also, Daryl Morey is a huge bitch. Did
Yeah,
you see?
so
I mean, sorry, I shouldn't.
With filing the grievance.
This is non-PC language. Yes, he filing a grievance about this. They're not contesting the win. They're just filing a grievance because they have their bark has some bite.
But for me, I just think like they were up 10 points for the majority of the game, and then that lead dwindled down. At the end of the game, the refs were definitely letting them play, but that also includes multiple things in the sense that like in that last pre that last scrum where DiVincenzo made that shot, Tyrese Maxey very obviously blatantly pushed off Josh Hart, and although I'm certain there was contact on the Knicks side at the end, they didn't call it, and I think it's slightly in dispute whether they had possession of the ball when Nick Nurse went for the second timeout motion. I guess I'm just saying it was
kind of a half-assed timeout motion.
And the first one he kind of waved off. He went and then he put his hands back down. All I'm saying is I think some of this is in dispute. I understand some of the gripes from the Philly players. I mean from Philly fans. I just think like this stuff happens in every single game in every single series. The refs are not, in my view. I even feel this way about my own teams losing. The refs don't decide the game, in my view.
Yeah.
There's many more factors at play besides the refs making calls or not making calls.
Yeah, and then I mean the other person I just want to give credit to before we wrap up Knicks is Kelly Oubre has been playing great defensively, and
huge credit to him because he's never really had that like pedigree.
Yeah.
And he's doing a great job on Jalen Brunson.
I mean, I think
as we've been seeing.
Oubre, they've also put Lowry on Brunson. I think in part they're just trying to they're using size to defend him, and it's working really well. So this would be I would feel differently about this team's prospects, honestly, to get to the finals if Julius Randle were playing, because it gives the Knicks a little bit more physicality and scoring and even more dimension to this team and a high end. But the story actually I'm missing is Deuce McBride, the bench. The bench has completely.
It's been what has essentially saved these two games.
Saved them. I mean, Josh Hart played the entire game, 48 minutes last night.
That guy is going to need like maybe 2 new legs
I know.
after the season.
I mean, I don't know how he does it. He's a warrior, but that's not he's not a bench player. He's been incredible, but the bench coming off and Philly just doesn't have the depth that the Knicks do, and Bogdanovich has been hitting some timely threes as well. So.
He's been kind of rounding into form a little bit, and Isaiah Hartenstein has just honestly been, such a revelation and just truly the dirty work stuff.
Totally.
Just getting rebounds when it's in the thicket of players and just like showing that strength and that tenacity and that endless motor. It's exactly what we wanted him to be as a acquisition.
The other 2-0 series lead by the Nuggets ended on an exciting bucket from Jamal Murray.
That was I can't believe those two outcomes, those 2 end of game possessions happened in one night.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I like. Jamal Murray, he did not have a game 1 shooting the basketball, or a good game 1, I should say, shooting the basketball. And he wasn't that good early on in game 2, and he just became clutch in the second half and ended up hitting that incredible shot that he didn't even get to see. He just saw that the crowd, or heard the crowd react, and he got mobbed by his teammates after he made it.
With Anthony Davis, like very much, basically,
who I feel very bad for.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and I think he as has happened in the playoffs before, he sort of faded again in this game too, down the stretch. But against a guy like Murray, and again in terms of height and weight composition for both guys, AD could not have really defended that possession better, and Murray just rose up over him and drained the shot to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, and he's one of the more underrated players in the league, probably, just because I don't think he's ever made an all-star team or anything like that, Jamal Murray. But he shot really well in the second half of that game. And Jokic is just automatic. You can expect such a high floor for the Nuggets whenever he's playing. And, in terms of depth, it's the same kind of thing that we're talking about here. The Lakers haven't had the depth all year, and it's showing up in this series.
And also, as I was saying prior, it's an interesting, it's a tough situation, because honestly, a part of me almost thinks that the Lakers would have had a little bit more luck and a little bit more success had they actually in the way the play-in machinations panned out. They would have had more success playing the Thunder than playing the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Because I think in terms of the size matchups and the strength matchups, LeBron James and Anthony Davis match up much better, I think, posting up a guy like Chet Holmgren as opposed to a guy like Nikola Jokic.
Oh, yeah.
And the Lakers, I think, have basically lost like 9 straight to the Nuggets in the past 2 or 3 seasons. And a Denver beat writer, I think it might have been Harrison Wind at Denver Sports, put together this compilation. Jamal Murray has made that shot in that type of play design against the Lakers like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Where basically they pick and roll, switch on AD or a big onto Murray, elbow jumper, goes right in.
Automatic.
So it's just like, this is a uniquely bad matchup for the Lakers, and I think they definitely would have made more noise out of the play-in if they had a bit of a suitable matchup. It's just hard when you go up against the Voltron starting 5 of this Nuggets team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% accurate. I mean, speaking of the Thunder, they beat the Pelicans, but it wasn't that close. It was only a 2-point game.
You mean wasn't that out of? It was more competitive.
It was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. It wasn't typically what you see out of a 1 and an 8 seed matchup. Especially when the Pelicans don't have Zion, which would have been another interesting matchup if he were healthy. And he had like 40 points before he got injured in that
best game of his life.
This was his way to catapult himself into superstardom on the national stage. But
it's so sad.
He needs to see somebody like. He needs to see some specialist that works with, I don't know, like Embiid or some of these other guys that struggle with their weight on their lower body. But I mean, not to blame him. He's been playing his heart out. I hope that the Pelicans can last long enough for him to have some return, because I think the series could go 6 or 7 games given how well the Pelicans played the Thunder, and CJ McCollum didn't even have a good shooting night. I think he was 2 for 9 from three or something.
They
like
really
that.
locked down CJ McCollum defensively, but I think if they're but the Pelicans are a very well coached team, and they are actually, I would say, pretty. I think they have a lot of good auxiliary players that really complement CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram when both healthy. Like Trey Murphy Jr. has been a really great addition for them. Jose Alvarado is just kind of spark plug energy type of guy. Jonas Valanciunas is kind of a little bit of like kind of their hub sort of in terms of passing and rim protecting. So like I think if they can kind of find some answers, they can definitely make it competitive more than just like a like a 4-0-1-8 sweep.
Yeah.
But the Thunder I think I think you sort of have to try and beat them basically on rebounds and
physicality.
And if you can't they can really sort of carve you up.
Yeah, I mean, and they have a star scorer in SGA where
Yep, exactly.
he ended up tying the game and then winning the game when it looked like the Thunder actually might pull off the upset. And it was off a Chet Holmgren block that SGA got the ball and ended up winning the game. But that was the first Thunder playoff game, I think, in 5 years. This has been the result of their long rebuild, which is...
It actually panned out with Sam Presti at the helm. It was pretty amazing.
This was trust the process, but done right, I guess. I mean,
I think if I'm not mistaken, they were 2 seasons ago. They had a bit of like an impressive showing in the 2020 bubble before I think not making the playoffs ultimately. Then went 24-58 either I think 2 seasons ago, and then went 40-42 or 42-40 last season. Then ultimately got the 1 seed this year. So it's been kind of like exponential growth of their success.
Well,
it's been exactly what you want. It's exactly what you want to see happen when you make these big moves and accumulate so much draft capital and actually use it, as opposed to the Sixers kind of not really using it for the most part, except for obviously getting Joel Embiid,
and developing their guys and having the coaching staff to be able to do so.
Yes, Mark Daniel. I don't really exactly know how to say his last name. He's like one of the youngest coaches in the league, and he's just done an incredible job keeping the system afloat and also, elevating the system and going from a rebuilding team to a number 1 seed.
Yeah. I mean, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's face of the league in 2 or 3
so
years.
Awesome. And came over in a trade for Paul George to the Clippers. It wasn't even as if he was a homegrown guy. It was like they took a chance on trading their veteran star in OKC to take a chance on the Clippers young budding star, and here he is, probably going to finish second in MVP voting.
Yeah, he has been absolutely incredible and already on his way to being one of the faces of the league. And another player that's on their way to being one of the faces of the league is Anthony Edwards, if he's not there yet. I mean, they're on a very similar track.
And I feel like this start of this series already has been kind of a coming out party that
Zion should have been having.
I know,
honestly.
Exactly. It's similar. It's right. You get to this stage and you can kind of get more exposure. And I think this is different for the Wolves than last year, because the Wolves were in the 1-8 series as opposed to now they're more in the driver's seat as the 3 seed against the Suns. And Anthony Edwards is just showing not only he's always had star power. He's always had such incredible upside, but this I think is just showing the completeness of his game kind of becoming more and more apparent.
Yeah, he is he's one of the most athletic players I feel like I've ever seen play basketball. There's a reason he went first overall. He dropped over 30 points in that game. The viral clip of him crap talking his hero, shit talking. I'm just gonna go for it. Shit talking his hero, Kevin Durant, was incredible.
And Durant sort of like accepting it and smiling, being like, you know what, like I have to respect that, because like I'm sure he's probably seeing something of himself as a younger player in Ant, you know, which is...
He's just that guy. I mean, and the other player that I feel like needs to be highlighted in the up-and-coming kind of stars in the NBA is Paolo Banchero. Paolo Banchero, I can never say his name right, but that Magic Cavs series is not seemingly competitive so far. Donovan Mitchell's been really good, but I don't even have too much to say on that, especially because their other game was not nationally broadcast, so I didn't get to watch game 2.
If anything, I think if all things go to plan after 2-0, the Cavs take care of business. I think honestly, it's a good proof of concept that at full strength this Cavs team can have
Yes.
success. Especially the Magic are obviously untested, but they're a great defensive team and they have a lot of young star talent, as you were saying, with Paolo and with Franz Wagner. So I think overall very good development for the Cavs if they can ultimately close this series out. When they obviously they thought they had much more going into last season's series against the Knicks, and it seemed like they were maybe a step ahead of schedule than they were last year, and the Knicks ultimately kind of just pretty convincingly won that series.
And it just felt like, well, back to the Suns Timberwolves series, it kind of felt like the Suns were a bit lethargic, right? Or just didn't have too much direction. Durant had a pretty good first half, but didn't have a great second half. And then Devin Booker scored under 20 points. Like,
I think this is the issue, though.
Bradley Beal's just still kind of just, there. I don't know what to say.
I think this is the issue with the Suns team is that that they are. It's not just that they're very top heavy. That it's basically Booker, Beal, Durant, and then use of Nurkic to kind of string certain things together. It's also that they're top heavy with guys who kind of do the same thing.
Yeah,
they're isolation scorers that especially kind of in KD's and Beal's more advanced age, and also kind of hoping about in terms of trying to prioritize their health as well. They're not flying around screens. They're not doing a lot of movement. Like it's you are really relying on excellent elite level shot making, which is a fair proposition when you have Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. But when you need to go to something else, there's not a whole lot else to go to.
I think you're seeing a lot of like kind of a bit of a moving away from the traditional mode of team building from 10 years ago, where that was how you won a championship. Like a lot of these teams, I mean, the Nuggets last year they have stars obviously, but they are a team playing team basketball. And I feel that way about the Knicks this year too.
And they all have, and also especially with the Nuggets, like starting five is an example of like Jokic, Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, and I'm missing a guy. But
I spaced out when you were talking.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying the starting five of the Nuggets. So like KCP, Aaron Gordon,
2 shows today.
Jokic, Jamal Murray,
yes.
and I'm missing a guy. I don't know why I'm
Jamal
missing.
Murray,
KCP, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, and then I'm missing a person.
Jesus
Michael
Christ.
Porter Jr. Sorry.
Yes, Michael Porter Jr.
Jr.
How could we forget?
Just as an example, as you're saying, though none of those guys occupy the same role basically in any capacity. They all have specific strengths, but they also kind of complement others where if someone's kind of deficient in one area during the game, others can kind of make up for it.
Right.
Whereas like the Suns, it's a little samey despite having 3 incredible shot makers. There's just not a lot else to go to.
Right, exactly.
So if the Wolves win, I think especially with Karl Anthony Towns being back, which is such a boon for them, because the Anthony Edwards-Rudy Gobert partnership, I think, is improved significantly, but just having Cat there, I think, is just as an infusion of pure offense is extremely, extremely necessary for them to go farther.
The other game that was honestly shocking to me was the Clippers just destroying the Mavericks. I did not anticipate it. I thought it was going to be much more of a coin flip game because you got the notification that Kawhi Leonard was definitely not going to be available. But it really wasn't that competitive. James Harden went off. He was over 30% from 3. Looked like a vintage James Harden. And everyone contributed. Paul George was awesome. He looks great. I'm so happy to see him healthy in the postseason. Russell Westbrook was also playing with a ton of energy, and he finished in double figures. So the Clippers are maybe, if they can actually get Kawhi Leonard back, that's like my Cinderella story out of the West. That would be the thing that would make me really happy to see the Clippers like reach the finals, because those 3 players are such awesome pros, right? I mean, 4, right? Harden, whatever, I'm mixed on him, but I have such affection for Westbrook, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, and I would love to see those guys actually have success with this iteration of the Clippers, because they've just been hit by that injury bug the entire time.
And I think that's always been the toughest thing about relying on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as kind of the nucleus for this team, is that there's never any dispute about what this team could be when everyone is healthy. Right. Because like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in a number of ways are basically the 2 like most like archetypical basketball players to like serve as like successful centerpieces,
Like old school,
right, like
all around basketball with a capital B
exactly.
players.
Rangy wing players who can defend basically almost every position and can shoot and make and pass. Like they are just as I think there's anecdotally there's a reason why there are some younger players who basically see Paul George almost as more of their archetype for who they want to emulate, as opposed to some guys like Kobe or Michael Jordan or LeBron, for example, because of how well-rounded Paul George is. But I think, as you were saying, the only thing that's always been holding them back is honestly them staying on the floor. And the other thing that was also sort of holding them back, which we'll obviously see if this can continue, is just James Harden's ability to show what he shows often in the regular season in the playoffs.
Right.
If he can actually just be an effective playoff contributor, and he absolutely he almost single-handedly won one of these playoff games for them this time around. I'm not obviously assuming or thinking that the Mavericks will just completely fall down. I just think maybe the Mavericks thought this might have been an easier matchup knowing Kawhi wasn't fully healthy.
Yeah.
And they're showing that's not the case. And I think that's...
And they're not as good defensively as the Clippers. Like, the Clippers are just more well-rounded.
Totally.
And you can just see how they ended the season strong, the Mavs did, because of their scoring ability and Luka being, one of the favorites for MVP. But do they have the team? I don't know. And we've been saying that since the beginning, even though they did rocket to the 5 seed. It still is just not the complete team that it should be.
And it's a lot of trade deadline acquisitions like that did definitely seemed successful into the second half of the season with like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. It's more just a matter of, it's a little bit different augmenting your team at the deadline for the rest of the regular season than it is being in a playoff series against playing one very skilled opponent a minimum of 4 times or a max of 7 times. It's just a different beast, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I think that one will actually probably be closer than maybe I at first anticipated. I kind of thought, maybe the Mavs just have it. But after seeing how well the Clippers played, this one could also kind of be a real war,
Completely. I guess the Bucks beat the Pacers. Dame had that 35-point first quarter and then nothing else.
That's
without
Giannis.
Giannis.
I think that's really tough for the Pacers because you sort of want to be able to jump on a team where they're missing their world-beating, 7-foot freakazoid in Giannis, and Damian Lillard basically was like, you know what? As much as there's been some consternation about the fit all year and kind of like the ins and outs of the Adrian Griffin, Doc Rivers saga, Dame was like, oh, right, I'm freaking amazing in the playoffs.
Right.
Let me just show that.
Right.
And he did this thing which I thought was so awesome because he brings to me such like a steely, cool presence that is so rare in a superstar because like his celebration and his kind of like the way he exudes on the floor is very controlled, but like when he made a huge shot at the end of the half, you could see him mouth like, "This is why you brought me here."
Yeah.
I was like, that is so cool.
He is so cool.
To be in that moment and realize like, yes, like this is literally the reason these fans wanted you here.
Yes.
Is for performances like that one. So like that was really awesome. As much as I've
overcome the Doc Rivers of it all.
Right, and that's the thing is like as much as obviously we've had real, I think, earned criticism about the Doc Rivers situation, I'm always happy to see Damian Lillard succeed.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I'm a huge Damian Lillard fan, and if the Bucks win the championship with, I'll eat my hat with.
Doc Rivers gets another one somehow, some way.
Yeah, but I do kind of root for it to happen if the Knicks can't come out of the East,
totally,
just because Damian Lillard deserves it all and more, and he's such a genuinely great family man and role model and all, but in a wholesome way that isn't corny. He's just the coolest.
Totally, and I think also unironically, just like someone that's so like I think like deserves to be rooted for, and also I just feel like by all accounts he is like a consummate leader and teammate
and professional, right?
Yeah,
and he got blown out by the Celtics without Jimmy Butler. I really have nothing to say about that.
That was they're trying their best, but there's not a whole lot to be done against that Celtics team when you don't even have Jimmy Butler, the kind of like spark plug guy that you kind of need to even make this a series.
Exactly. So we do have 3 games in the NBA tonight. You got the Mavs at the Clippers. We have the game 2 of Pacers at the Bucks. And the matchup, once again, Suns at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 2 for those teams. Now on to the NHL, where my New York Rangers had one of the most uneventful, dominating
Yeah, it
performances
was really
against the
just
Washington Capitals. It was not even a fun
no, it
watch.
was just like, all right, 4-1.
I mean,
Okay.
it was hilarious because Matt Rempe scored the opening
Let's
goal
go.
of the
Let's go.
playoffs, the
The
enforcer for the
the
Rangers.
renaissance is here.
I mean, I hate the whole thing. I know that I'm in the minority of fans. I don't like seeing this 21-year-old kid get into fights all the time and concussing
I was just gonna
himself.
say, you're not rooting for this young guy to just basically sustain multiple brain
The
injuries.
energy that he brings is one thing, right? Like, because he's clearly this happy-go-lucky, goofy guy that has gotten hit in the head some amount.
And he's extremely willing and almost not even like a malicious way. He's just sort of like, oh, like, you want to fight me? Like, okay, like I'll fight you.
But
Like,
he's not, he can barely skate out there. He's always falling down. He takes these huge strides. He's not a talented. Why I don't like enforcers in the NHL is it's big guys that know they don't have the skill to stay in the league. So they say, well, this is a way that I stay in the league and I'm going to risk my health by starting
totally,
fights. So I
totally.
don't like that. But he is hilarious, independent of all of that. And the fact that probably the least skilled player on the team scored the opening goal against the
The
Capitals.
playoffs for the Rangers.
And just his whole shtick, him being the first goal scorer was hilarious. And then right after that, Panarin had an incredible goal because he didn't score at all in that series collapse last year against the Devils. And that, I think, drove him to have that season where he was in the MVP conversation. And my favorite player, Rangers won easily. It didn't really seem like it was in doubt, and the Capitals are just slow, and they came into the league with a insane goal differential, -37, which was 27th in the entire NHL. That's the lowest differential since the Whalers and the Canucks in 1991, and that's when a majority of the teams made the playoffs in that time when the league had 21 teams.
No, when we were even talking about it, we were like, it's really actually after all this, we almost thought the Capitals were like actively trying to not win.
Well,
and here they are in like the, kind of stumbling into the playoffs.
Totally. I mean, they played well at the end, but it was really Charlie Lindgren in goal and just like defensive hockey. They're slow and they're old, and Tom Wilson is still a piece of garbage, hitting Shesterkin at full speed with the back of his stick in his back at the end of a play out of frustration.
He's so annoying.
He's
hate
the
that
worst.
guy.
And the
Speaking
thing
of enforcers.
yeah, the guys over at Blue Shirts Breakaway have made this point before. Tom Wilson doesn't need to be an asshole. He doesn't need to be a dirty player because he's actually a good hockey player and has been a skilled hockey player. He's not like one of those other enforcers who needs to stay in the league by being dirty. He doesn't have to do it, but he does it anyway because he's just a piece of shit. So, I mean, this Ranger, there have been studies done about these teams, or not studies, but at least analysis done about teams that win the cup, and they usually have a series where they win it in 4 or 5 games, so they have an opportunity to rest, as I was saying in relation to the NBA. The Rangers have got to get this done fairly quickly, and I'm hoping that they do so tonight. Knock on wood. I really don't have too much to say about that because it was a dominating performance. Same with the Oilers against the Kings. The Kings did not look ready for the moment. Connor McDavid had 5 assists, including a beauty to start off scoring where he sent it over to Zach Hyman, the unlikely 50-plus goal scorer in the regular season for the Edmonton Oilers. And Stuart Skinner played fine enough. The thing about the Oilers this year is I've been saying this for a few weeks now, or a few months. I actually believe in them this year. I mean, I think that they have coaching for the first time in a really long time. I think that they're adequately using their depth. Chris Knobloch, he was on my short list to coach the Rangers for a long time because he had such a great reputation coaching their minors affiliate, the Hartford Whalers, and he finally gets his opportunity, and it seems like he's making the most of it. So the Oilers are like definitely, I think, going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Western Conference Finals. I would be shocked if they don't, especially given what we saw in Dallas, because the Vegas Golden Knights, they stole game 1 as basically the final wild card seed, and that's in part because they have as Frank Saravalli put it, a quote, the NHL has a quote competitive integrity issue because Mark Stone was
He's like, I'm feeling so much better all of a sudden.
He was being eased back into the lineup by having one of the top time on ice forward tallies of all of the, clearly just coming off injury, Mark Stone. For people that don't realize, in the NHL, you can basically suspend your salary cap after having guys on long-term IR once the playoffs start. And the Tampa Bay Lightning did that during their cup runs in back-to-back cups that I don't think count as much because they were pandemic ones. And the Vegas Golden Knights did it last year and are doing it again. So the Dallas Stars lost at home. And as I was saying about these cup teams having a really tough round one matchup like this that extends the time that you have to be grinding and being physical, and there's these two teams are physical with one another, it affects your chances to win the Stanley Cup. And
I think both to your point about, I definitely see what you're saying with the Oilers, because I as we've been discussing with the Hyman 50 goal campaign and others, like basically if they can get like a number of their role players should just kind of be like 20% better than they were in last year's playoffs, as well as same thing with Skinner. Like if Skinner can just be like a normal goalie instead of like literally the worst goalie in the playoffs, like that would be helpful as well. And then with the Stars, it's also just tough to like, it's almost analogous, I think, to like a team, like it's almost like how it was with the Warriors and the Kings last year, for example, in the playoffs, where it's like the Stars clearly better regular season team, but the Knights like won the Stanley Cup last year, so like. And the team itself, obviously Stone aside because Stone is returning, but they're not that much different from the team that was there just last year winning the Stanley Cup. So to me, that's just a tough draw, because if they got a team that was a little bit more fledgling, a little bit more scuffling, a la the Capitals for the Rangers,
right,
I'd have much more faith in the Stars pulling this out. But the Knights are battle tested. Like the Knights are,
and they have high end talent.
And high end talent.
High end talent. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone. I mean, that's
Jonathan Marchessault.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a team that has the ability to really turn it on.
Despite their placement, with their placement not being nearly as important as just like what they have as their nucleus, sort of in the playoffs.
And the Golden Knights were 3-0 against the Stars in the regular season.
I didn't even realize that. So it's also kind of a bad matchup, just
horrible
just
matchup
broadly.
Yeah, and it was between them and the Kings basically, and the Kings ended up sneaking into that spot. And I think that obviously the Stars would have preferred to have the LA Kings as their draw, because they just don't. I mean, they're young too, but they don't have, I think, the scoring upside that the Vegas Golden Knights do that can, cause great goaltending in Dallas to have like to be a little shaky. So,
and I think the Kings, especially, I think going into this, they probably wanted Dubois to be a little bit more impactful than he has been when they traded for him. So I think that's also not helping that he's not really paid dividends yet as much as they'd like him to.
Frank-Luc Dubois. Wait, who are you talking about?
Isn't that his name? The guy that they traded for? They traded Gabe Vilardi for.
Gabe Vilardi.
They traded him to Winnipeg. Pierre-Luc Dubois.
No, it wasn't. It was Tanev. Are you talking about Tanev?
I'm Pierre-Luc Dubois. He was the center for the Jets.
Okay. They did trade. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't even realize that he had. The Kings. I'm sorry. I thought I got confused and distracted trying to put my document together here. Apologies. Anyway, so
for the draft,
yes,
for the mock draft,
a little bit. I was just teeing it up.
That's much more important than a mid-season Kings Jets trade remembrances.
Oh yes, my mock draft, which will determine all coming up.
So
soon.
Much is riding on Emma's mock draft.
So much is riding on it. The Islanders collapsed. Did you know that they were 81-0 in the postseason when leading by 3 or more goals, and now they are 81-1.
That was I couldn't believe it. 5-3 after all that.
Well, they should absolutely have not been up because they were being outshot. They didn't record a shot on goal against Carolina until 13 minutes into the first period. Not one shot on goal.
Oh my god.
And then they went up 1-0 in that first period, and I was like, what? And then they went up 2-0 and then 3-0.
Their variance offensively is so bizarre because
it's so bizarre.
Because even as far back as when Barry Trotz was coaching them, it's just been hard-nosed defense and goaltending with maybe one goal. And if even them scoring 3-0, I'm like, how can they possibly lose? Well, they never scored 3 goals.
They're getting coached like this as well too now, and that's in part because the personnel demands it, which is
right, definitely.
Which is the thing where it's the Islanders need to blow things up a little bit. They just don't have a top line that scares you, and they're so mid.
In every aspect to a degree.
Barzal is a really good player. Horvat is a good player. And that's their top line, the center and a center and winger on their top line. And then everybody else is mid to bad. Everybody else. Like Kyle Palmieri has some flashes, but he's been there since like I feel like I was born.
And he's older. He was even on the Devils before he was on the Islanders.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Maybe that's why I have him in my mind so much, because he's been in the Metro for so long.
He's like a 10-year veteran. Like, so it's like also hard to sort of like get too excited about him as like someone who needs to be prominent on the Islanders.
Yes. And so they basically Sebastian Aho, the one on the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yes, not to be confused with the other Sebastian Aho.
Tied it up with 2 minutes left after they'd pulled the goalie. It was 3-3. And then as they're announcing the goal and like the arena down in Raleigh is going insane, they just score immediately after to make it 4-3 and put the dagger in the hearts of Islanders fans, which was also fascinating because it was Varlamov in goals. Sorokin has not had a good year.
And that's the other thing, too, is like usually the kind of the X factor for the Islanders was Sorokin. I feel like Sorokin has not been his usual self.
He's not starting, which is incredible given, some of the highs that we saw of his. But yeah, I mean, the Islanders, I didn't see them advancing. The Carolina Hurricanes are a scary team. I'm scared about the prospect of the Rangers' pace. I think they're the second best team in the East. I mean, them or the Rangers. It's between them. Those two, I think, as best team in the East. But I think the Panthers might be the best team in the East, and then it's between the two for them.
And it's what we were talking about a little bit prior to the playoff seeding finalizing, was that we sort of were like, the Canes are probably a guy or so, like an X factor guy or so away, and now they have it. And
Jake Gensel,
and look at how they're playing, and if anything, I almost feel like Aho's usefulness and prowess is almost obviously getting elevated to come through in that clutch of a moment, and not even see 3-0 as like a completely not seeing 3-0 as an inevitability and just go to next game after taking the loss. They win that 5-3 and are now, and I think now especially, kind of in my view, I don't really see a future where the Islanders score another 3 goals in a single game.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Hurricanes, I'm like, okay, we kind of got through the most offensive output we'll probably see from the Islanders. I probably feel pretty good about the next few games, just knowing they're most likely not going to do that again.
Right. And speaking of offensive output, the Avalanche Winnipeg game was shocking because I assumed that it was going to be more low scoring, given how incredible Hellebuck is. But the Avalanche actually had the ability to take a lead here, and to steal one in Winnipeg because they were playing incredibly offensively. But Alexander Georgiev, former Rangers backup, who is a really, I don't want to call him a head case, but he's like a player that clearly has wild emotional swings. Had a 6.96 save percentage, one of the worst ever in NHL playoff history, and gave up 7 goals and made just 16 saves on 23 shots. And the Avalanche decided to trade away their starting goaltender in the year that they won the cup to
Darcy Kemper,
to the Capitals, and then traded for Alexander Georgiev from the Rangers. And I've been saying this to teams, nobody seems to listen, but this is something that happens with Rangers backups. The coaching for goaltending in New York is the best in the league, and they make backups look much better than they are. And Georgiev may not play another game for the Avalanche. That's how bad that was.
Yeah, I mean, you get 4 goals. You get 4 goals past Connor Hellebuck, and you're probably feeling pretty good about your chances. And then your goalie gives up 3 more than you scored. That's a really tough proposition.
He only faced 23 shots on goal, and
so the efficiency was insane.
Negative efficiency.
Yeah, right.
Lack of efficiency, right? It was one of the worst playoff performances I've ever seen for a goaltender, and I don't say that lightly, because even though Georgiev's incredibly self-serious, he does work hard and he tries, but he just doesn't have a great hold on his emotions, to be honest with you.
And that's just tough. You're like, oh, we have a 4-goal cushion in one way or the other, and then you give up 7.
And all of their other players, Cale Makar played really well offensively. Nathan McKinnon was flying around the ice. That was the best you could have hoped for from an offensive perspective
100%.
in Winnipeg. And they completely let it slip through their fingers. Right. And then the other one is like Leafs Bruins is split right now.
Yes,
1-1.
which is exciting.
Without William Nylander for the Leafs. Like the fact that they're able to actually take one in Boston is interesting. I mean, I thought Boston were pretenders all year. Like David Pastrnak ran up numbers. I mean, it's Pastrnak, it's Marchand, it's Pastrnak, it's Marchand, and that's kind of it. I mean, they're another team that doesn't have, I think, the depth to really make a long run. So, the Leafs could actually win this series, and that would be fascinating.
That would be really something else, wouldn't it?
I think they lose to Tampa or Florida next round.
Yeah, because I'm still a little fearful of. I'm definitely fearful of the Panthers, but I'm also still fearful of the Lightning as well, despite them. It's a similar thing I was saying about the Knights. Like I think the Lightning could sort of spring themselves on anybody just because they are who they are.
Right, exactly.
And they have Kucherov, who I think is like the best player in the league.
Yeah, Kucherov's incredible, and then but like quietly, Alexander Barkov is becoming one of the best players in the league.
Oh, totally.
Kachuk is great, but like Barkov doesn't get the headlines because he's
not as effusive as Kachuk
right. Exactly,
is.
that's a good word for it. Yeah, but Barkov has had one of the best years in the NHL for any skater.
Another great acquisition for Florida outside of Matthew Kachuk is Barkov.
Was Alexander Barkov not drafted by them?
I thought he wasn't. I thought they got him from either Minnesota or somewhere else. I thought they got him from. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought
no, he was drafted by. The
so
Panthers.
he's
homegrown.
I think I might be thinking
been
of
with them
somebody
for 10
else.
years.
There was not. I'll think of it. There was another guy I was thinking that was like besides.
All good.
Kachuk, I liked.
All right. Well, we ran through that because I got to get out of here for the Rangers game, and most importantly, we have to get to my mock draft, which is going to change absolutely everything. It's going to change everything.
Literally everything. The scouts watch this program. They're looking for they're looking for the Vigeland score on each pick.
I know. I mean, this is how I got all of my intel from my scouting sources. I'm a one-woman. Just kidding. So I did a little mock draft. I color coded it. I probably spent more time color coding it than I did on any other aspect. And like mock drafts, when you do an exercise like this, you start really detailed and strong, and then you kind of get lazy towards the end because that's when it gets a bit of a crapshoot. So to be a bit of a crapshoot. So forgive me here. I started with this under. Whoa.
Should I not put it up yet, or do you want to?
Whatever. It's revealed.
Okay.
So, full disclosure, I literally changed this last night from Jaden Daniels going to the Washington Commanders to them taking Drake May. Now, of course, I have the Chicago Bears first overall taking Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in this league for like many years. I have ultimate faith in him. He also seems like a psycho about the game. He paints his fingernails. Oh no. He is like kind of a bit of a Gen Z type. Oh no. All of the stuff about him is just nonsense. He has incredible arm talent. He works on his craft. He's been this way since high school. He is just one of the best quarterback prospects to come out in a really long time, I would say.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. I think, he would be ranked before coming out ahead of CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud I was singing his praises last year. I feel the same way about Caleb Williams. And, I guess the only person you can say he's like in terms of hype, he's equivalent to is Joe Burrow, So Caleb Williams to the Bears, I think that's going to change that franchise. So the Washington Commanders, the reason I have Drake May going to them is not because I think he should. You hear a lot more about some of the concerns about Drake May and how inconsistent he is and how, honestly, I watched that pro day of his and there are no impressive throws. Like, I think a lot of his highlight tapes are what people seem to be gravitating towards. But he is not like really playing like a pro yet, so he needs some time. But to your point with that, he is like, I think one thing probably too in May's favor, just in terms of his development, is that he's so young. Yeah,
that he's basically like 21.
Yeah, that's what people. I mean,
which is good, I think, in terms of having athletic tools and being having such little like playing experience. I think is because he was also a multi-sport athlete. He was like a baseball player in high school. So I think he has
but he doesn't
some time to learn.
He is literally the worst thrower of all of these prospects. I mean, in the first round, in terms of consistency and the way the ball looks, Jaden Daniels looks better. Michael Penix, you know how I feel about Michael
Well,
Penix.
I think if we're talking how the ball is coming out of somebody's hand, I'd be drafting Penix basically second overall.
JJ McCarthy's mechanics are better, and his arm is a bit stronger, more consistently. I mean, he just wasn't.
And
his athleticism, I like more too.
Is underrated, I would say almost. And I think I think I know what you were about to say is like the Michigan offense also like did not recommend itself to like showing all of his talents.
They just ran the ball all the time.
Right.
Yeah, but you see the way that he tests, and you can project that to the NFL. And I guess maybe not of the okay. I don't like Bo Nix. People seem to love Bo Nix. I don't really get it, but we'll get to him in a little bit. Of those 4 guys, though, that are projected in the top 10, I feel the worst about Drake May. But I'm putting him there because it seems like there are people who know that, I don't know, he's going in the top 10, that somebody is hot on him. I'm praying it's not the frickin' Giants. I'll be very upset if that's the case, to be honest with you. So I have him going to the Washington Commanders because also it seems like Jaden Daniels was really offended by them doing this, like, bizarre Topgolf experiment where they had all 4 guys, had Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May all together, like seeing how they interacted as opposed to them treating it like a reciprocal relationship where Daniels would want to come to them as well. The Commanders, like, they had a real opportunity to change the culture of this franchise, and I don't know about Josh Harris based on that decision alone. They could still take him, but it seems like Jaden Daniels is putting out feelers to the media that he doesn't want to go there. And the Minnesota Vikings are literally, and the Raiders are doing the opposite and like begging him to come.
May, I think didn't seem, by all accounts, did not seem to mind the top golf situation.
Yeah.
Whereas Daniels seemed to be a little bit put off by the top.
Oh, the Southern white guy didn't like the top golf test for him by the billionaire owner.
Yeah, he's a guy had fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's not how it's ever done in the league. You're supposed to, especially with a quarterback with that high of a pick, make him feel like you want him as badly as they want to go there and they want to be a top pick. So I just found that to be a bizarre move by the Commanders. So I have Drake May going to the Commanders, even though I really think it could go either way, Jaden Daniels or a guy like Drake May, or they trade down. But here I have the Patriots trading down, which I think is actually definitely in their best interests.
Agreed. They have Jacoby Brissett on the team. They have so many other needs outside of quarterback.
They could be number 1 overall pick next year. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. They do not have an offensive line. They don't have any receivers. Their defense,
they have
without
a few
Bill
pieces,
Belichick,
but it's not a. There's not a lot going on.
Do I have faith?
Kyle Duggar I like, but that's basically it's basically it. I mean, Christian Gonzalez, I would say too.
Yes, but he was injured back half of the year. I mean, like they have a ton of rebuilding to do, and they need more assets.
Totally.
So if I were them, I would try to trade down and build the team before throwing a new quarterback, especially like Jaden Daniels, who is not the heaviest player, into the mix. The Minnesota Vikings are desperate. I have them trading picks 11, their other first-round pick this year, pick 129, which is a third-round pick, and a 2025 first, to move from 11 all the way up to 3 and take Jaden Daniels. So I have Caleb, Drake, Jaden Daniels to the Minnesota Vikings. The Cardinals have seemed zeroed in on Marvin Harrison Jr. since the start, so I have him going there. Malik Neighbors to the Chargers. I initially had them trading down so someone could get ahead of the Giants to take J.J. McCarthy. But I think maybe Neighbors is such a talent that they may not pass it up, and it's such a significant need. My only question mark is just like, Jim Harbaugh has not shown a propensity for like wanting to have an ex-receiver. I mean, Michael Crabtree was his guy in San Francisco, so he could be like, "Oh, I'll take Joe Alt here" or something like that.
I'm telling you right now, if Jim Harbaugh at the helm of this team has his pick between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, or just one of them, because the Cardinals have taken them, and he picks like either Joe Alt, like a stalwart like left tackle, or even more absurd, which I've heard in some capacity, because the league loves this guy. And don't get me wrong, I like this guy. I'm sure he'll be somewhere later in your mock. Talise Fuaga from Oregon State, because he's like a road grading run
at 5.
There's been I don't think it's going to happen. I just more mean it would be the most Harbaugh ass thing to be like, let me get a road grading right tackle so I can run Gus Edwards the ball 40 times in the triple option. if that happens and they come out of this draft with neither Malik Neighbors nor Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm gonna have some really really
strong words,
upsetting things to say.
Oh yes, I will too. I mean the Bills also need a receiver, but that we'll get to that a little bit later. I have the Giants taking JJ McCarthy. I don't want to jinx it. I think that the Giants are smart enough to understand that if a quarterback falls to them, they have to take it because they, in the phase of this rebuild, shouldn't plan to be back up in the top 10 anytime soon, or this regime is going to be gone. I think
Right.
that, I think that, would I, in a vacuum, rather have Malik Neighbors over JJ McCarthy? Yes, right? As a player, I think Malik Neighbors is going to be the best receiver in this draft class. I'm extremely high on him. And I've loved him for months, honestly, ahead of Marvin Harrison, who's not a separation receiver. I prefer guys like Malik Neighbors who are faster.
Harrison's like literally, I would say one of like the best route runners I've ever seen. But me and you were talking. The big knock with him is he actually cannot generate yards after the catch.
Yeah.
It's just not his game. Neighbors is like a yak machine because he's so fast.
Right. That's the kind of guy I would prefer. And I would love for Justin Herbert to have a fast guy like that so he could take advantage of his arm.
He's never had that.
But my guess is I think that the Giants are going to try for a quarterback, or if Malik Neighbors is there, maybe they'll go there. I really don't know what the Giants are going to do, which is a credit to this front office because someone named Dave Gettleman used to tell everybody that would listen what he was going to do.
He's like my top 10 Senior Bowl players. Sorry, what were we talking about?
The Titans I have taking Joe Alt, who's probably the safest pick besides Caleb Williams in this entire draft. He's going to be a very strong offensive tackle for years to come, comes from an NFL pedigree. Teams love that. The Titans also have a coaching, like a father-son coaching
Bill
duo
and Brian Callahan,
who love offensive linemen and also are like an NFL family. I just feel like Joe Alt to the Tennessee Titans makes too much sense, and it fills a real need for them.
And Alt is what I think is interesting about Alt is like underratedly 6'9".
Right.
Like in the sense that he doesn't play like he's so tall and like has like difficulty getting into his stance. He's huge, but he's very light on his feet and he can really take on blocks and stuff like that. So like I think, especially as we've been saying for a long time, Titans have basically the worst offensive line in the league still.
Right.
And so pairing him with Peter Skoronski from last year I think would be great.
Yeah, and he Taylor Lewan was like their longtime right tackle, and I think Joe Alt has a lot of similarities to him.
And except he's probably not a huge piece of shit like Taylor was, but sorry, but
no, he
not to
seems
editorialize too much, but Lewan has some checkered history from
I didn't even
his
realize
past in
that.
the University of Michigan. But
tell me.
He like apparently allegedly like sexually harassed a woman and kind of like threatened her to not like report that she was sexually assaulted.
It sounds like Peyton Manning.
It was it was all alleged, obviously, but like he just does not seem like he did not seem like the most like upstanding guy, Taylor.
Dallas Turner, that's another kind of chalk pick. I had more trades until I kind of reevaluated the Commanders' Jaden Daniels situation. Dallas Turner going to the Atlanta Falcons. I just think they need a blue chip pass rusher, and he is by far the best pass rusher in this draft. And this is a very, I think, elite offensive draft, not a ton of elite defensive players. Dallas Turner and Quinyon Mitchell are kind of like the blue chip, more like high-end players at each of their positions.
And they have high-end like athletic traits,
right,
which I think is like hard, not as easy to come by in this draft for like edge rushers or corners.
And defensive head coach for the Atlanta Falcons in Raheem Morris. I just think that like Dallas Turner is kind of a great piece for him.
And I was talking to my friend about this, which I think is crazy, but like honestly, the Falcons have basically not had like a high-end pass rusher outside of like Grady Jarrett, who's in the latter half of his career, Adrian Claiborne, who's retired, and John Abrahams, who retired in literally 2012.
Yeah.
Like they have like not had like a double-digit sack guy in so long. So like this is such a huge need for them if they ultimately go this way.
And they have other pieces on defense. Like they have a really great roster. It's just like about giving.
Right. They have AJ Terrell at cornerback, so it's like not as if they need to go for a quarterback
Jesse
as
Bates
much.
at
And
safety.
If Jesse Bates at safety, totally. Yeah. This makes sense to me.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. That's why I went for it in my mock. All right. Well, don't hesitate to critique it. Let's go for picks 9 through 16 here. I have the Chicago Bears maybe reaching a little bit in my view, but trying to set up Caleb Williams for the best possible outcome. Rome Odunze from Washington going to the Chicago Bears. I've heard comparisons that he's kind of like Keenan Allen in terms of his physicality, but not a ton of separation as a receiver. And to have Keenan Allen there, who's going to only be there for another year, and Rome Odunze come in and then be the number 2 option to DJ Moore for Caleb Williams is pretty exciting, I think.
I see that. I think the comparison makes sense because Odunze is similar in the sense that, like, not similar to Harrison, because obviously I think Harrison is like a kind of a tier above of like route running, but Dunze really does like everything well. He's not. I wouldn't say there's like one thing he does particularly. Like, he isn't like, elite level speed, elite level right. It's like everything he does, he's pretty well rounded. So I think he would be a great safety blanket type person to have for Caleb Williams for years to come, as you said, because Keenan Allen's in his early 30s. So once Allen is out of there,
and 1 year left on his deal,
right? So there's just potential that Allen's not there for that much longer. To have a young nucleus of DJ Moore and Rome Odunze would be great for Caleb Williams's growth.
Next up, I've got Brock Bowers, one of the other safe picks in the draft, going to the Jets, who felt like they needed when is the last time the Jets had a great tight end?
When's the last time the Jets drafted an offensive player besides an offensive lineman?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Garrett Wilson, I guess, but yeah. I just mean like even like, yeah. I mean, it was Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton, Will McDonald last year, pass rusher. Like they don't usually go for pass catchers when they outside of Garrett Wilson recently, and that worked out pretty well. But I love Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers plays tight end. Brock Bowers is a slot receiver in a tight end's body.
Yeah.
Georgia was putting Brock Bowers in freaking bootleg actions. It is insane how athletic this guy is for his size.
He can only put on more weight too.
Totally, exactly.
And improve as a blocker, but as a pass catcher, I think like we're starting to see, whether it be Sam Laporta last year or Dalton Kincaid, we're seeing more of these like rookie tight ends making an impact where previously it had taken them 2 or 3 years to make an impact. I think the Jets can still justify getting Brock Bowers, even though they're in their window to next year with Aaron Rodgers and his conspiracy theories.
Totally, and I think honestly the Jets honestly had some success with their tight ends last year with Tyler Conklin, but honestly, that's like Tyler Conklin was like a role player. Like to have a guy like this who's not just who can grow into a franchise tight end, but also be like this athletically gifted, I think would be a fun swing to take.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, I have the Patriots taking J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama. I think it's a bit of a beauty is in the eye of the beholder for the second offensive tackle off the board.
Definitely.
He's Patriots,
huge also.
He's huge. He's a great athlete. The Patriots have Alabama ties and they need an offensive tackle. So that's kind of what I went with. And I think he has a lot of high upside based on, what I hear from other people. I don't pretend to be crunching the film. But that's I would say a good bet to be the second offensive tackle off the board.
He's 6'6", 360.
Yeah.
No big.
And
moves the way that he does. It's just unbelievable, these athletes.
And then this is how the Patriots can begin to build in the trenches. That's the right thing to do. I mean,
absolutely.
The Jets were right to take Elijah Vera Tucker.
Agreed.
To take those guys and Will McDonald, who is more of like he's
sub-package guy for now.
Sub-package guy for now. But he could grow into that role, and you're seeing the Eagles do the same thing.
They're stockpiling these
cycling
guys.
in pass rushers. So I actually think it's good team building by them, and maybe the Patriots can follow suit here as they try to make their team, what it once was talent-wise, infuse some talent in there. This is just a random trade I had because I think that the Indianapolis Colts really need to move up to get a blue chip player or at least acquire one.
Especially on defense.
They have a ton of good players, like decent players, but Quinyon Mitchell is by far the best corner in this draft, and so I just have them kind of swapping up with Denver. Denver Broncos trading number 12 to the Colts for 15 and then a 4th round pick, number 116. And the Colts taking Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. He's a stud. He's by far the best corner in this class. And as I mentioned, one of the, I think, only 2 real blue chip, although Latu out of UCLA, who I have going here to the Saints, is pretty damn good too.
And Mitchell's one of those guys where it's like, yes, he went to a small school, so competition was less than like that of like the SEC or whatever. But he's one of those guys where it's like, it is just unimpeachable that he is the best player on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where I think it rises above the rest. And he also had an incredible Senior Bowl.
Oh, yes.
So when he was up against better competition, it didn't falter.
Right. And some teams really value that, especially in like more traditional kind of I don't know. I can't make an assessment about the Colts front office and how they'll feel about it. I just wanted to spice things up. And
Ballard likes big, fast, strong.
yes. Well, Ballard's a good talent evaluator,
Yeah.
so I think that's part of what
he likes traits, and which I think is like smart. He likes like explosiveness.
That's how we feel.
Right,
so.
exactly. It's like I subscribe to the philosophy because it's I also like big, fast, strong.
Yeah. I have the Raiders taking Fashanu. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. Another
I
again.
love this guy.
You could swap this with the Patriots. Whatever. Like I just picked. Offensive tackles is going to be beauty in the eye of the beholder. But I think this is kind of when the offensive tackle run begins, and the Raiders could improve their offensive line for their next quarterback, who we'll get to soon.
He has Olu has the one knock against him is that he has like surprisingly small hands, which is like usually a big red flag for teams, is that his hand size is very small. However, when you watch him on tape, he is just an incredible player.
Yeah.
Like he is just a real. If he was the first tackle off the board, it wouldn't even surprise me. I think Joe Alt has definitely gotten that mantle now, but he, I think, is just as good and could be better. Honestly,
as a pass protector in particular is like kind of what his body size is
yeah,
like.
yeah.
But, he reminds me of the Texans tackle, the one with the gas mask.
Tunsil.
Yeah. He reminds me of Tunsil. Maybe if he put on a little bit more weight, but just in terms of as a pass protector, he's the kind of guy that the Raiders could really use.
Totally. And he's 6. Yeah, to your point, he's 6'6", 317. So even if you put on a little more weight, I think, as you said, that could like also just help his all around game.
Yeah, I think so too. What are his measurables? Did you say
he's 6'6", 317?
Okay, yeah. I mean,
whereas for example, Latham is like
315.
Right. And,
that's
interesting.
like more of an athletic pass protecting left tackle. That's what I see for him. But again, half these guys are going to bust.
Projection, exactly.
Right.
Totally.
I probably feel better about Latham from a pure traits perspective, and that's why I made that decision to flip them. But who knows? I have Latu going to the Saints. They need more. That was based purely on the fact that they definitely need more youth on that defensive line. And Dennis Allen somehow still has a job, and he cares about that
he
defense.
Loves that. So Latu is like, although obviously a little bit of concern about the medicals because he medically retired, but he came back. He is, I think, where Dallas Turner has the athleticism, Latu has the technique.
Yeah.
Latu has incredible hands.
Right.
Like he is just such an arsenal of moves, and he's really fast, and he's like always eye for the ball, nose for the ball. So like that, I think this would be a cool addition to like Brian Brissy, the defensive tackle that the Saints took last year.
Yeah, and to your point, like they could do the Will McDonald route of just put him in packages until they can
need him to be
him.
to be more than like Cam Jordan leaves. Cam Jordan retires, for example. Put Latu in as the kind of replacement for him.
That's my vision there. So the Broncos, I think, based on all accounts, are really hot on Bo Nix.
Oh my god, this would be crazy.
So like, I went to to do a little research for this. I like to see like what some of the beat reporters are saying from each. There was a collection on the Broncos website of some of the most common mocks, and Bo Nix going to the Denver Broncos was one of the more common ones.
And
I'm not sure what that's driven by. Like, I'm not sure if that's driven by some commentators that have close ties to Sean Payton saying that he likes Bo Nix. And Payton, to be honest with you, needs to quiet down a little bit. Like, he loves to talk, including...
He sure does.
Remember what he said about
Nathaniel Hackett?
Nathaniel Hackett? Like, he's got to just be quiet a little. And when I'm seeing something like that, which is so out of whack with, like, what the mock draft people are saying is the consensus for a big board and Bo Nix going there, I just feel like he wants Bo Nix. So now some competition for little Zachy.
I think Nix would be a extraordinary reach here because I think if you took Bo Nix in the 3rd round, that'd be fine. Just because he has an enormous amount of tread on his tires. He's been in school.
24.
He's 24 years old. He has, and I wouldn't.
But he doesn't have the arm talent that Penix has.
That's even what I'm saying. Though,
that Oregon offense did not impress me either as a pro-style offense.
My concern too with him is that we didn't see as much of this success he had at Oregon at Auburn. So I'm wondering, is this his ceiling? That he kind of had his best season as a 24-year-old college student. And the other thing is, as you said, if I may be wanting to take a big upside swing, I'd rather take it on Penix than on Bo Nix.
Me too. And in terms of age, like I just like they're both 24 years old. Michael Penix has played a lot of really high-end football. I don't really feel the same way about Bo Nix.
And I just think Penix's arm pops off the screen much more than Knicks's ever did.
But I think Knicks and Penix are apparently going in the first round. It appears to me like I think Bo Nix did Bo Nix get invited to the draft? I vaguely remember reading that. We don't have time to go through it because I got to run soon. But yeah, Bo Nix I have based on just scuttlebutt going to the Denver Broncos.
It seems like he wasn't though. Ultimately,
okay,
to the draft.
Okay,
is, I mean probably for the best.
Probably for the best. The other like kind of big move I have here are the Seattle Seahawks trading down with the Buffalo Bills because number 17 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think they're hot on getting potentially a receiver to replace Calvin Ridley.
Definitely.
So I have the Bills trading up ahead of them with the Seattle Seahawks trading number 16.
I would love nothing more than for this pick to actually happen.
Yes. It's a bit of wish fulfillment for me because I want Josh Allen to have success. So Buffalo's trading 29, 128, which is a 4th-round pick, and the 2025 third for number 16 to select Brian Thomas Jr., the other receiver out of LSU, who I think is like there's those 4 receivers and then a drop off in the consensus.
But if you told me that he became one of the best receivers from this class, it just wouldn't shock me at all because he has such a rare combination of size and speed.
Oh my God.
That he is his size and sort of similarly almost like as like the wide receiver Brock Bowers comparison, as not comparing them one to one, just meaning like he has like slot receiver speed at such a different size.
Totally.
And his explosiveness just jumps off the screen as well. So seeing that would be so cool for Josh Allen to have after kind of the receiver profile like Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis that he had otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we have 17 through what's the next one? Oh, 17 through 24. This is when the run on offensive linemen start. The Jaguars go for Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. They need some corner help, I think. The guy they took out of Florida, who I'm blanking on, didn't really work out for them.
CJ Henderson?
Yeah, he struggled with injuries.
Yeah, I think he's not even. I don't even think he's on the team anymore.
No, he's on the team. He's on the team. He's on the team.
I thought maybe he got traded.
Or maybe he got traded to the Falcons. Oh wow, he's not. No. Now I'm like, hold on.
I think he got traded to Carolina at some point, and then got traded to Atlanta.
Or maybe he got traded. Yeah. Now you're making me doubt it. You're making me doubt it. God damn it. This is not. Oh, I'm thinking of Tyson Campbell.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Yeah. Tyson Campbell. I think he's pretty. Tyson Campbell's pretty good. It just he was the first pick in the 2nd round when he got drafted, and he just had injury concerns. So I think honestly,
that's what I'm thinking of.
Supplementing that secondary would be good.
And he was not out of Florida. I was thinking of C.J. Anderson or whoever it was. Maybe you could just look that up for me. That would be lovely.
Henderson was drafted. Henderson was drafted by the Jags and then traded to the Panthers, and now is on the Texans.
Yes. Okay. Apologies. Regardless,
Campbell went to Georgia.
There we go. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson to the Jaguars, SEC country. They love their Clemson guys. They have a need at corner.
And I like Wiggins a lot. Wiggins is pretty prototypical size, good feet. Could probably fill out a tiny bit more of his frame, but I think he's a really good player.
I also another player I really love in this draft, who I've been for some reason returning to highlights for, is Byron Murphy. I still
love him too. Agreed.
We're undervaluing some of these pass rushing defensive tackles, and I would love nothing more than the Bengals to have him as a defensive difference maker. So I have Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle, first one off the board, and I think only 1st-round D tackle out of Texas going to the Bengals. Now, here's where it goes. I have the Rams trading out of the 1st round for 3 picks. The Raiders getting 44, 122, or trading 144, or Jesus. 2 shows again today. Sorry, guys. 44, 122, and a 2025 second for number 19 to select Michael Penix Jr. I think he'd be perfect for the Raiders.
It'd be awesome.
He'd be perfect. So we'll see. Got to wrap up here, guys, so I'm just going to run through this. The Steelers need some offensive line help. There's their run grading.
My guy Fuaga.
Fuaga.
I love Fuaga. He's fun to watch.
Best interior O-lineman in the draft. The Dolphins also could use more bodies at offensive tackle, so I have them taking Amarius Mims out of Georgia.
Talk about traits. This is the biggest guy in the draft, and he's only played a few games, but he's actually really good.
Oh yeah, and like
I love Mims.
I mean, that could be really an up. He needs some polish, but I think he can make an immediate impact in the run game. And
for sure.
They did the Dolphins at the beginning of the season were a juggernaut when they were able to run the ball. So I have them taking him at 21. The Eagles taking Cooper DeJean, who I think will end up being a safety given his speed limitations, but a really damn good one.
And it would probably be a plus player on special teams too, because he also return kicks and punts and stuff. So he's a fun player.
Yeah, I think he'll end up being a safety, basically defensive back out of Iowa. The New England Patriots now getting another trench player, this time on the defensive side of the ball, Jared Verse, defensive end out of Florida State. There's a significant drop-off, I think, after Latu and pass rushers. Again, this is not a strong defensive draft. I also have Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, going to the Cowboys, who need some offensive tackle help, and they freaking love their Sooners down there in Dallas. So
and he's sort of projecty a little bit as well, but I think would be definitely worth, like, similar to Tyler Smith, another Oklahoma Tyler. No, he went to Tulsa, but Oklahoma based Tyler's projecty, but I think would be really good in for the Cowboys.
Tyler Guyton just screams Dallas Cowboys draft pick to me. And then finally here, this is what I've got. The Green Bay Packers, again, some more offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen.
I love Fatanu. I was just watching some of his highlights today. I love Fatanu. He's really, really mobile, really athletic, and I think kind of versatile.
Yeah.
Could be good for the Packers for sure.
I don't even, in the end, I actually don't think this will go the way that I anticipate, just because the Packers don't really take offensive linemen in the first round. I was losing steam here. I got the Bucks taking Jackson Powers-Johnson. The Cardinals, I could see them taking an edge rusher just because of their defensive coaching staff with Chop Robinson.
And they don't have a whole lot of players on defense. Like, they could just use some, like, upside, I think.
The Seahawks need interior offensive linemen. This guy, Graham Barton out of Duke, is
another
kind
guy
of
I love.
A big deal. There's some strong back half of the first round interior linemen. The Lions need some cornerback help. They should have never, I don't know if we had the show at this point, but I was saying at the time that they should not have taken that Ohio State kid. What was his name again? Who's now on the Texans? Third overall.
Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, who was another technically wonderful player with not a ton of athletic upside, not the kind of guy you take in the first round.
I like Kool-Aid a lot, though. I think this is a good pick.
Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Detroit Lions from Alabama. All the scuttlebutt is that A.D. Mitchell out of Texas is going in the first round based on those measurables.
A.D. Mitchell on the Ravens would be so crazy.
I just every guy that's just an athletic freak I give to the Ravens.
It would be so sick. I would love nothing but to pair with Zay Flowers.
Yep.
Now I'm hoping
Odell anymore.
Now
right?
I'm hoping this happens.
Yeah. So no.
That's what I'm hoping happens.
Wrapping up with Jordan Morgan, another interior offensive lineman most likely, which the Niners need out of Arizona, and Terrion Arnold, final pick in the first round to the Kansas City Chiefs, the other Alabama.
Another athletic upside-y corner. I think the Chiefs could definitely. They've done such a good job developing their secondary. So
Totally.
That could be a good pick.
Right, and the Alabama corners I don't think are going to go in the top half of the first round. They seem like a little bit later.
Kool-Aid, I think, initially was going to be almost seen as the number one, but I think he dropped a bit. So I think I could totally see this happening. Where
I think there's some skepticism about their ability to be like complete man-to-man corners, but that's why they'll drop, just because they may not be the speedy guys that Alabama has seen in the past. And
funnily enough, both of them have a little bit of like handsiness that I think people are a little nervous about, but I think that can obviously be coached.
So anyway, guys, that's it. Gotta run. Go into the Rangers game. We'll see you on the other side of all these playoff games and the draft.
Everybody wish good luck to Emma tonight.
Yes, I mean, knock on wood. That's what I prefer, actually.
Yeah, just knock on wood wherever you're listening or watching.
All right. We will see you next Monday.
Bye-bye.